Welcome everyone to Bookish Love with Krystal. I have with me Elizabeth Helen, the authors of the Forged by Malice books. Hi ladies, how are you?
Hi, thank you so
Hi,
much for having
we're really
us.
Of
good.
course.
I'm Helen,
And
and
I'm Elizabeth, and we're so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you both on. When I sent out that message to you guys back in December, I was so nervous that I wouldn't even get a response. I was like, this is a shot in the dark. And I was so excited that I'm pretty sure everyone in my house thought something like was happening because I just let out the giant squeal of my life because I was so excited. Um So before we go into this, I want to tell you both thank you because your books are the reason kind of what got me back into reading hardcore like I used to when I was a kid. So I do want to say thank you for that. Um,
thank you.
and then one thing I just kind of want to jump in is what made you guys choose to choose co-author and how is that working for the two of you?
It's going amazing, and I just want to say, thank you so much. Like, when we get messages from readers that our book helped them get back into reading, it's one of the best messages we can get because I have such a love of reading, and I think it's something sometimes you fall out of love with, or you just
Mhm.
forget to prioritize that part of yourself. So that's so great, and I'll let you talk about co-authoring.
Yeah, so much. We're so happy to be here. Co-authoring. We're sisters, and we have honestly been writing together ever since we were very, very, very
Mhm.
little. Even when we were before we could read or write, we would draw joint stories together.
Mhm.
Storytelling together has just always been a part of our lives. And we started seriously pursuing publication when we were teenagers. That's when we both decided we want to be authors. We want this to be our
Mhm.
job. We were like 16 and 18. And we just always came up with stories together, and we've continued that our entire lives.
Yeah,
And
it
so,
always just felt
yeah.
very natural to tell stories together. And it's I couldn't imagine writing a book on my own. Like, who are you bouncing ideas off of? Who's fixing my
Yeah.
terrible spelling, you know? And I think different strengths that lead really well to first starting with indie publishing and now navigating hybrid publishing. It's definitely like having a team, which in a solitary business usually. So very nice.
Mhm.
Oh, no, see, that's awesome. I actually envy the both of you with your co-authoring because reading the books, you can't tell who wrote what, which is amazing because it's seamless. And I think there's some authors that I've read in the past that did co-authoring like that, where you can tell who wrote what or where one person ended and the other person picked up. And I don't get that out of your books, which is phenomenal. Um,
I'm glad to hear
so
that. Yeah.
do you guys like when you guys started out, did you like one of you start writing first and then just kind of like pass the notebook off? Or like how does that work for you guys?
The first one I remember how it started, one of the first times actually writing on a page is I had this secret notebook and I was writing this was gonna be my epic fantasy book. I think I was 12 or 13 at this time. And I was like, you can't read this, right? And then Elizabeth eventually finds it and she's like, well, this is good, but you've spelt everything wrong. So I'm gonna make this pretty on the computer. So she took the notebook and rewrote my stuff on the computer.
That was the first year iteration, and our process has definitely
Okay.
evolved since
Yeah.
then. And we have gone through many different processes throughout all the different books we've written. In some versions, we always outline together, but
Mhm.
then we would just both basically write the book and then mash them together with a lot of work.
That was the
And our process has now refined to where we completely outline everything, every chapter together, but then we'll divvy up who writes the first draft of what chapter.
And
And
then,
yeah.
yeah, and then we edit each other's work. So by the end, we have lines in each other's chapters, or I've torn apart this chapter and rewritten that maybe Elizabeth originally wrote. So it's all a merger eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does
Uh,
come. It is now at a point where if you open Bonded or any of the books and pointed to me a line, I would be very hard pressed to tell you oh, who wrote that line originally. So
oh, cool. Well, I
yeah.
mean, that's awesome that you two have that for each other just to kind of like bounce back and forth. I mean, I use my daughter's stepmom and my sister. I'm like, here's my books. Please tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And like, so they're my feedback loop, which is hard because it's all over text messaging. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I need to know I'm not messing this up.
Yeah.
And both of them are teachers. So I'm like, please help me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, and you two
Yeah.
were teachers, correct?
Yeah, so that was our job before we moved to full-time writing, which was really only this year we've started to do full-time writing, which has always
Or
been a
this
dream.
school
This
year.
school year, yeah,
Yeah.
starting in
So
September
September
was
2023.
the first year I actually didn't go back to teaching, and that was a strange feeling. But yeah, we were both teachers. I taught in some full-time classrooms before, mostly young kids, and I did really like it, but I always felt like that was never my dream job. My dream job was always to be an author.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like
Mhm.
I remember I caught on one of your guys' lives where you were talking about that, and I was just like, that's that's awesome. But I could see when you guys were presenting everything, I'm like, yes, I totally see that 100%.
Yes,
Um,
I did really like
Yeah.
teaching, and I think, like, some of the skills have carried over to, like, organizing, and I, like, now schedule my day like I used to
Mhm.
schedule my classroom's day, except it's now, like, write time, admin time, lunchtime.
Yeah.
I should literally get myself a magnetic board
Yeah.
for our office.
It's true.
I
Yeah. A
I
lot
can
of the skills are, you know, transferable in a lot of ways. Like we've been outlining a new book and we keep saying a motto that we use in teaching, which is like begin with the end in mind. So for outlining, it's like, okay, where do we want the story to end and work backward? And in teaching, it's like, okay, where do you want your kids
What skill do you
what
want
skill
them?
do you want your kids? How do you get there? So it's funny to see the parallels in, you know, fantasy fiction and you know, grade one education.
you know, but it's true though. I mean, that's kind of like the best motto to live by because it's right. I mean, I've literally messaged my English teachers from when I was in high school. And I was like, "Hey, thank you," because
Yeah.
without you guys, I don't think I would have had a clear like mindset. But I can't outline to save
Yeah.
my life. Like I outlined book 2 in my series, and I've already like it's out the window and I've just been completely pantsing writing, you know? And I'm
Yeah,
just like,
totally.
people that out can outline, I envy you all.
And see, I think it's always like the grass is greener because I'm always like, oh, pantsers, like you guys got it. Like you just
Yeah.
have the flow. And because I'm a
Yeah.
super outliner. So it's, you know, and I think maybe that's because we write together. We have to outline so thoroughly. But yeah, it's
I know,
two
that's
very
what's
different skills.
amazing about authoring is like there's so many different processes to get to
Mhm.
your own result, and it's kind of just like trying stuff out and figuring like what works for you, you know?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Look, as a pants writer myself, I'm like, I lost track of one of my characters because I took the whole month of December off because I broke my finger, so I couldn't write. So I was
Oh
like, oh no.
no.
So I had the whole month of December, I got all these words in, and then I'm like, diving back in, I'm like, "Wait a minute, I lost Fennec, like, 6 chapters
Yeah.
ago, where the heck did I put him?"
Yeah, if it helps, like sometimes we outline and then we're like, oh shoot, we still do that. Where's this person?
Our favorite line is like, okay, I have a plot hole like halfway through a line, and we're like, okay.
No, no fault.
So, talking about the stories, do each one of you have, like, a set character that you like, if it's in this character's point of view, I am writing it, and if so, who?
So for Beasts of the Briar, it's mostly 50-50 at this point.
Mhm.
The first couple books, I would say I wrote slightly more Dayton, and you wrote slightly more Ez, but now that like Ez had a whole book, I wrote a lot of Ez and Forged by Malice as well. And you've written some good Dayton scenes as well. So
Yeah,
at this point, I think it's pretty
it's
50-50
mostly
for all of them.
50-50. I say yeah, and more so than we divvy up characters because I think we're very attached to our characters and
Mhm.
we both want to write different scenes of them
Yeah.
and different aspects. So it's more so that we divvy it up sort of by arcs of the book.
Mhm.
So like for example, like if there's like a chunk where they're all doing one thing, in Bonded by Thorns, for example, the ball scene, I mostly
Mhm.
wrote all the first drafts for that. And then Helen wrote most of the first drafts of the wolf or the goblin chase
Yeah.
scene with Kel and Rosie and in the cave. So we mostly divvy it up more by sort of plot, I guess, is how
Mhm.
we do it.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's cool to, like, think about it like that. I just didn't know if, like, maybe, like, you had one character that you were like, "I need to write this character, and this is just me. You can edit it, but this is me."
Yeah.
I think we have like scene moments like that where
Yes, we
like there's
do.
so this is like a Forged by Malice spoiler for anyone who's listening, but the scene where like the bargain is revealed between Cass and Kel, like that has been a scene that has been in my mind forever. So I'm like, I have to write this scene. And we
Totally.
kind of know like what scenes, like even without talking about it,
Yes.
belong to who.
Yeah.
Such as like you did Ez and Rosie's like mate bond and stuff.
Yeah,
So
like
I knew that was like a you scene.
and it's like we like it to be 50-50. So I took on more of the mate bonds with Farron and Ez,
Mhm.
and I think Helen will take on Dayton's and
Everyone else's.
everyone else's.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Whoever's all out there.
whoever it ends up being,
Yeah.
you know, we'll see what will
Who
happen.
knows who their mate bonds will be?
No,
Exactly.
who knows? Maybe that's it, or maybe there won't be, and that will
Maybe
just
there won't
be
be
it.
one for me to take on for Dayton. You
Yeah,
never know.
you never know. We'll see. Whatever will happen.
So I want to touch on a spoiler for Forged by Malice for anyone that's listening. If you haven't read, just kind of like skip over this. But that last chapter, and I don't want to go too much into detail, but I think I figured out who Birdie is
Yeah.
and who she is to Rosie, and also who she is to the Queen, which I figured that one out like as soon as like middle of book 2 came. I was like, oh, I know who the Queen is. And it's just it kind of like it sunk in for me. But that last chapter had me in tears because I was just like, oh no, because if this is who I think it is, I hate her and I just want to and
There's a lot of hate for some characters and a certain character in Forged.
I think there's only one character that everyone's just like, no, we all have put her
Throw
in
her
a
off the
group and
branch.
just like, yeah, she's getting Spartan kicked into a pit.
I think that's hilarious because one of our first beta readers for that, and we're all talking about Renly here, is
Yeah.
Whenever Dayton thinks her name is that's pretty cute. He says that, and then one of the beta readers comments or something was like, it's not cute, Date. It's certainly not cute. I wish I could chuck her in a pit. And I just laughed so hard.
And they all of our betas started calling her Wretchedly after that. They wouldn't refer to her by her real name. And
I can see it.
it's so funny because we have like some very unlikable characters in Forge. You've got Kyron, who does very, very, very not nice things. You've got Perth Quello still in there. You have Sierra, but nobody is quite as hated as this lovely black light who just comes in and tries to help Dayton. So
Yeah.
So I'm still there's one part that I'm not asking about because I'm hoping it gets released in the next book, but there's one thing that Cass says to Renly about a love potion. And it quirked my brain and I went, oh. And it was one of those like brain gasms at the moment where you're just like, oh, I figured it out. Or at least I hope I figured it out. And I forget what it was. There was one thing in Woven by Gold that I was like, this is how it's gonna go. And then you guys totally went opposite with it. I was like, oh, okay. My brain was not right. All right. But I love how when I read these books, I see them physically in my mind. It's like a story that's perfectly told. And I like I said, they got me drawn back into reading and making me going, okay, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one?
oh, thank you so much. I love, we were very, very inspired as children with like, books that have these like very these settings that you can see very clearly, like, Lord of the Rings is like my favorite book of all time. And so like getting able to build settings that people can picture themselves in has always been one of our goals. And so I'm very grateful and honored to hear that that's something that happened to you. So thank you very much.
And as far as like clues within it, I'm a huge fan of like foreshadowing and putting like tiny little details. So that's why when readers say like they listen to the audiobook after reading it or they reread them again, they pick up a lot of stuff. So like there are big questions that readers are wondering about. I just tell them like if you reread the books like Forge and Woven specifically, like all your answers are kind of there. Like you can answer your big questions by just rereading them. But like there will be a lot of really fun reveals in book 4 that I'm looking forward to.
I already
Yeah.
pre-ordered my copy because I'm just like, oh, it's pre-order available. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
I jumped right on it because, and I did the same thing for Forged by Malice. I was like, I need these books. Like, I need to have them because they are phenomenal. And I've told so many people about your books that I had one of my friends, she was just like, oh, I'll get to them. I'll get to them. I'm like, no, whatever book you're reading, put it down, pick this one up and go for it. Um,
Oh,
That is
my,
that.
I finally, after months of telling my daughter's stepmom about your guys' books, she just started them yesterday. She finished book 1, and I've already gotten a list of like, all right, I hate Caspian, yeah, and it's just like a list, and I'm like, I'm trying so hard not to tell her, don't worry, your thoughts will
just wait.
change. Just
Wait, yeah.
she wasn't a fan of Dayton in the beginning. I'm just like, I might fight you for that. But again, I'm biased because I've read all 3 books.
See their
Um,
journeys and how the boys
And
go, and
that's like what we find so fun about like the why choose genre is like everybody gets to pick their favorite, you know,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a boy
for
band.
adults,
Everybody's
you
got,
know.
you know, their
oh
favorite
yeah.
one or, you know, the one that bugs them, and then you can sort of start to win them over. And so
Mhm.
that's really, we love that part of it.
Yeah.
That is the best part of the genre. So, okay, spicy scenes. Because you two write some fantastic spicy scenes. Whose idea was it to start writing spicy books?
So we
We
we wrote a lot of
Mhm.
YA first. Like that was like the genre that we loved and we wanted. And then I think we just saw like we always loved reading spicy books, and we
Mhm.
saw their like appeal start to go on like grow on like TikTok and Book Talk and how
Yeah.
popular they were.
Like romanticy started to
Romantasy.
have this renaissance on TikTok, and it was perfect for us because we had always loved romantasy,
Mhm.
but it was, you know, it really started in the last like 3 or so years,
But it
started to
wasn't really like
grow.
there wasn't really a place for it in traditional publishing,
Yeah.
which we
Yeah.
had been trying to traditionally publish for so long. So we thought, oh my God, this is amazing. Like our favorite genre,
Fantasy and
and romance
romance.
is finally like starting to be popular and especially self-publishing. So we thought, okay, well, we're gonna write a romantasy book. But we're like, what can we make it unique, you know? So we saw a lot of Why Choose books that were like Mafia or Billionaire and stuff like that, but we hadn't seen a ton of high fantasy. Why Choose books, so we're like, okay, let's combine the two and just see if people are into it, plus make it classic, like a fairy tale retelling. We're huge like Disney adults. We love Disney and fairy tales and stuff like
Yes.
that. So it's not obvious. And we just kind of like, let's write a book with all of our favorite scenes and see if other people like it too, you know?
And yeah, and Bonded by Thorns is our first, I would say, super spicy book. We have written other books under other pen names that have some spice, but not quite to the extreme that Bonded does. And like even, you know, a lot of people in the genre say Bonded isn't that spicy compared to a lot of other books too. So
Spicy to me.
yeah, it's quite spicy. That's my spicy, but you know, and it does, I think the spice has gone up as the books have gone, and
Yeah.
Yes.
probably
Yes, they
will.
have.
Yeah. At some point, I'm sure we'll have to level out. Otherwise, you're gonna have a
There's
brief.
still a lot of combos to
Yeah,
go
there,
through.
there is a
Yeah.
lot of combinations we haven't explored yet. So
Which
but
I'm secretly going, yes, I can't wait for some of those combos.
yeah, I know that, and there's like some fun pairings, and you know, we also love to do the unexpected. So I think there'll
Yeah.
be some
One of our
unexpected.
hints for book 4 is unexpected pairings.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like romance, but there's going to be some odd teams, and I think it's going to make for some fun scenes.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I look
yeah.
forward to this. Now, with I know the first one is heavily Beauty and the Beast, and I love that. Like, absolutely love it. Was Lucas hard for you to write? Yeah, it's Lucas. Yes. My brain's, I'm
Lucas.
like, Lucas. Yeah, it's Lucas. I'm reading another book that the villain's name is Luke, and I'm like, don't
Oh, yeah.
confuse, don't confuse, don't confuse.
Yeah,
But
Lucas. Yeah.
Yeah, Lucas.
was he hard to write for you guys, like with the way that he is with Rosie? Because I mean, like, I wanted to yeet him more than I wanted to yeet Gaston out of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like taking all like the worst traits of someone and like really diving in, like, and you're not specifically saying, because it's all through Rosie's POV mostly with Lucas. So the way she looks at him has to be different, because she doesn't quite realize how manipulative he is, because she's kind of still under his spell in a way, right? And
Mhm.
thinks, well, he must love me, because if he didn't actually love her, then, well, I'm a victim, and no one likes to admit that to themselves. So it
Mhm.
was like, had to be very, I think, subtle in a way. And yeah, he is kind of hard to write because he is despicable, but writing that he gets his again, more spoilers,
Comeuppance.
his
Yes.
comeuppance was very
Yeah.
satisfying.
Yeah, I think one thing we wanted to show was like, even though Rosalina goes into this fantasy world, which should be very scary with these like monsters, she's
Mhm.
living with monsters, that like, we wanted to show like the evil of man, and that even in this terrifying new world, that the real villain is actually, this person that she had tried for her own self-preservation to believe that loved her. And it's about finding her place, even in a world that is maybe arguably more dangerous, finding her footing and her courage in that. And so that, we wanted to do justice to Rosie and do justice to a very despicable villain. And yeah, absolutely getting to build that over 2 books and get those moments. We've been really looking forward to the moments we got in Woven by Gold ever since the beginning of Bonded. That was always the plan,
Yeah.
was for Lucas to to find his end in
Yeah.
various fashions. So
Oh, which I loved. I
yeah.
loved that all. I actually I was worried when I got towards the end that of Woven that there was a possibility he was gonna get resurrected again. I was like, no, no, no,
We
no,
Yeah,
were
leave
I
him,
like,
like
no,
leave
make it clear he's
him.
done.
we actually added a line sort of late in Woven to make sure that it was like, okay, now he's dust. He's staying dead. He
Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
be
Yeah.
resurrected.
He's done. And
Yeah.
we're moving on to
New
to
villain.
new baddies for the
Oh,
rest. Yeah.
yeah. Those new baddies though are like,
Also
who
not
do I
very
gotta fight?
Yeah.
So back on the spice talk real fast. Who is your favorite and easiest to write those scenes with, and who would you find is your hardest to write?
I think, well, Cass is always like, he hasn't got a true spicy scene yet, but his
Yeah.
dialogue is always so fun and so
Yes.
smooth. I do really like writing through Dayton because I think he's like confidence, and his sass in it
Mhm.
is super fun to write. And for me, I think the hardest is Kel, specifically for kind of like
Mhm.
other reasons, is like they really can't touch, or they can't do
Yeah.
too much. It's like, how do you make this satisfying and still full of tension and stuff without it feeling repetitive, that like, okay, well, they're not gonna fully bang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think for me, like, it's always fun to go through any of the boys, but ultimately, whenever you go through Rosie,
Mm,
just getting to see her perspective on everything, especially with her coming into herself and really embracing herself, especially in the last few books, she's, feeling herself a lot more. Her vision of, or her view of them, of her men, and like feeling that love is, I think that's really fun to write. I also love writing Dayton and Fair together.
mhm.
I think they have such a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
Their scenes are always fun, but also you can really pull on the emotion there.
Mhm.
It was a little bit harder to write Rosie and Farron in Forge, because in Forge, at the beginning of Forge, they're in pretty good, they're very lovey-dovey, but you still want to keep your audience engaged and, not have any repetition or make each scene its own unique thing. And so I think, we're very lucky that we write Why Choose. There's going to be many different scenarios, but just finding the nice balance between the sweet and the spicy, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
about that.
Honestly, I loved all of it. So, I mean, as somebody that like I write it myself, and I like you're saying repetition, it's like, oh crap, I need to make sure that I'm not overdoing it or putting too much in one scenario. I actually deleted a whole spicy scene 2 days ago because I was like, I can't, I think I've done too many with this one character, and I'm like, and then I've got the text message, why did you delete that?
Yeah.
So, and then it's like, oh crap, I forgot you guys can see everything that I delete. My
Yeah.
bad. um,
They call you out.
they do, which I'm okay with it. My sister
Yeah.
will send me a text and be just like, why? Or I'll get
Explain
the
yourself.
big letters. Well,
Yeah.
the one I think it was my second book, the first couple chapters have a couple spicy scenes with somebody that everyone hated in the first book. And everybody's like, no, no, like there's no love for him. And then all of a sudden it's just like, wait, do we like him? Wait, do we?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yes.
Change
And
the
It
range.
is.
yeah, and so with that, I thought that I wrote maybe like too much, and I got the whole like text from my sister in bold letters that said, "Called me a bitch," and I was like, all right, my job it's successful. It's done. I've officially made it. She's mad at me. It's great. And
Yeah.
she's not mad at me in a bad way.
So that's how it feels like, you know what? Any emotional reaction from a reader is a good thing,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yeah.
best. Like, you make somebody feel something, even if they are angry, you did your job, you
I
know?
agree. And another thing
Um,
about spicy scenes we joke is that there's sometimes it's not like that. It's not like romantic to write. It's very technical. You have to figure out where everybody's limbs are.
Yeah.
You have to make sure
mhm.
your word choice is not repetitive.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of funny. It's like it's the kind of the same dynamics of writing a big action scene, you know?
Now,
Yeah.
do you guys have a word list of words that you like try to make sure you don't overuse when you're writing certain scenes? Because I do. I have a page of lists of like, okay, I can't use this word too many times because I've already used it so many
Oh my
times.
gosh.
We don't have a list, but I think we do have our
I,
go-tos that
I
we like
yes.
check at the document at the very end.
And we also like, bless our beta readers because they will if we try something different, maybe a new term, they will call us out and say, that
Don't
is
you?
so cringy. You cannot call this. What's my favorite one? They hate velvet wrap steel. You can't do that one. Or, we use the term steaming load, and our beta was like, that sounds like they're taking a shit. Like, got it. It's bless other people who can
Sometimes
step
you
back
can't
and
realize
see
at the
it.
moment you're just searching for
Yeah,
something.
you're like, I just need
Yeah.
something different.
There's only so many words to describe certain things.
And
So
it's probably
Yeah.
cringy to someone.
I feel like no matter what what words you choose, someone in the world's gonna find it cringy,
A
and it's just
hundred
like,
percent, a hundred
some people
percent.
will love it though,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
more people will love it.
You go for
So
it.
so pulling the reins in a little bit on my end. You actually have touched on some character deaths. I'm not going to say who to anyone because that's a spoiler on its own, but how hard was it to write the specific death that happens in Woven?
That was it was planned from the beginning, but it was hard. We feel, you get very attached to your characters. And again, you think, if you're doing something right, if you are in your characters and you can feel what they're feeling. And I think what we wanted to do is to put the building blocks along the way to make sure that the audience is going to understand where
What
the grieving person is feeling.
yeah.
And so, with the death at the end of Woven, it was, yeah, we wanted to do justice to the characters surrounding them and to make sure the audience, everything was understandable to the audience as well. They could, they knew why the importance of what was happening. And yeah, it is always tough to write a scene like that. And we just recently listened to it in audiobook and getting to hear it read out
Oh,
loud.
you're thinking about the scene from Woven. No.
Yeah, the
Oh,
scene from
the I thought we were talking about the Forge end of Forge death.
No, we're
Oh,
jealousy
Woven.
of Woven.
End of Woven. Yes,
I
end
was
of
trying
Woven.
not to give too many spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay.
End of Woven. But just hearing it read out loud is very emotional.
yeah.
And so I think it's definitely always a challenge for sure.
See, I cried at that. I will say this. So the emotion, it made it across because
Oh,
I was
good.
bawling and I
I'm
felt
glad I
horrible.
made
I'm
you
like,
cry.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're happy about
Yeah.
that because it does. It means something when you get it when you hear from your readers and it was like, I just sobbed. I finished this and I just visibly like I'm on the couch reading it and my kids are looking at me, they're like, Mom, why are you crying? And I'm like, it's nothing, it's a book. You
Yeah.
won't understand. And my daughter's like, I want to read those books. And I'm like, you're too young. Not
Yeah,
yet.
exactly, yeah.
But so there's very few books that I read that make me sob, and I've sobbed probably for all 3 books.
Oh my
That was the hardest though, like that one,
Mhm.
and I didn't sob as hard in Forged,
Yeah,
for that
I feel like
one
that's
just
very different
because
feeling.
it
Yeah.
it was. You didn't get
yeah,
as much of a connection with that person, but I don't know,
yeah.
like, when you're writing it, do you guys feel, like, gut wrench doing it? Like, do you, like, find yourself sobbing on the side a little bit or no?
Yeah, most of these things are planned for the beginning for a very specific reason.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of necessity to the ending of that ending of Forged.
Yeah.
So
And I think, yeah, especially with like Woven, I think is more
yeah.
sad because in that where you're placed more in Farron's POV for that. And with
Mhm.
Farron, he's more emotional, he's more tender, he's more sensitive. And so we want our reader to feel more emotional, more
Mhm.
tender, more sensitive. And then when you're placed at the end of Forged more in Ezra's POV, we want the reader more to feel more angry, more
Grief
numb,
or
but
Yeah.
betrayed.
yeah, like these different emotions. And so I didn't cry either time writing either of those. I did tear up when my listening to my narrator read it just because they did like they do really quite like theatrical performances
Mhm.
that are really, really touching. And I think it's different having, your character's voice in your head
Mhm.
compared to, you know, working on line by line when you're writing it. But yeah, it's definitely an emotional
Yeah.
experience regardless, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that was just one of the things that I was always wondering because I've talked to a couple other authors about, when they write certain scenes where like they kill off a character, like is like yes, you're invested in it, but like are you invested at the point where you have to put the computer down and walk away because you just broke your own heart? Um, or if it's just one of those where you're like, okay, I knew it was coming, so I prepared myself already.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have
Um,
cried in other scenes, but I think with
Yeah.
those certain characters, we were so well prepared
Yeah.
for
I
it,
remember you
Yeah.
texting me when you were like 17 in our school library and
Oh yeah.
you wrote a character's death scene. And I was like, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Or
So
maybe
I
you
guess it depends.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So really kind of one of the only other things that I really wanted to kind of bring out and ask you guys is what are like the major retellings you want to see done before the end of this series or another book series you want to work on? Like what are like the main like top 4 that you haven't touched already?
Well, I think like we kind of weave fairy tales all throughout this. So obviously the first one is very Beauty and the Beast
Mhm.
inspired. The second one wasn't too fairy tale inspired. Maybe it had a bit like of brave energy because our
Yeah.
the odd realm was kind of like Scotland and we had the Will-O-Wisps, but it wasn't necessarily a retelling of that or anything. And I think book three,
Is
hmm,
starting to have, we're
a
putting a little bit of Little
merm-
Mermaid energy into certain
and
things.
Little Mermaid energy into book four as
Yeah.
well because we're going to the sea. So we're gonna maybe, I don't know if there's mermaids. We've seen mermaids or sirens before, as they're called in this universe. In the
Mhm.
below, some energy we're gonna be bringing into book four is obviously gladiators, ancient Rome, and also pirates. So some fun stuff
Ooh.
ahead of that. And then we also have an underlying one, a little bit of Sleeping Beauty energy that is simmering. And there might be a
Ooh.
few nods to that coming up as well in the
So yeah,
series.
I think Beast of the Briar will forever be Beauty and the Beast with little nods to other fairy tales
Mm-hmm.
woven throughout. As
Mhm.
far as beyond Beast and the Briar, we do have a Snow Queen,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily retelling, but maybe inspired,
Yeah.
vibes of inspired. Book in the docket. I don't know when we'll have an opportunity to do that, but that's probably
Yeah.
something we'd really like to do
I
at
want,
some
yeah.
point. with like a little bit of Rapunzel in there too. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, that's one that doesn't get a lot of like love.
No, I
And
think that one could get some more love. Yeah.
that would really could, because I mean, I've read some Snow White retellings. I've read some uh Little Red Riding Hood retellings,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but Rapunzel does not get enough love, which sucks.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of a
Um
Snow Queen meets Rapunzel
Yeah.
retelling, and I would love to write it one day because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
that does. So do you guys find yourselves doing like little side stories like off to the side just to kind of like give your mind a break?
We hadn't last year was like literally
Entirely Beast of the
Beast of
Briar.
the Briar. Like we because our release dates were so close together. Maybe not for other authors. For us, 3 books in one year was a lot. We really went from book to book. And I think with this year, with now Magpie publishing the books in the UK, the release dates are going to be slightly more spread out. So we've started to sort of muse maybe on other things we might do in between while Beast of the Briar is in editing,
Mhm.
or just to take a little step back and not feel so overwhelmed by that world. So yeah, we're
Mhm.
kind of in a musing
Yeah,
stage.
I had this flash of an idea over Christmas and I could not stop texting Elizabeth about it. So it's something we're really excited about and maybe we will have future news about, but nothing we can say at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to
Hey.
take breaks from worlds and let your mind rest. And when we really, really dive into Broken by Daylight, I think it'll feel really fresh and there's so many exciting things for it.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And the reason why I ask is because I know I'm on Threads. I'm on the author side of it, and I see a lot of people going, "Oh, I'm writing this many whips," and I'm just like, I have one author that I follow. She's like, "I'm writing 6," and I'm like, "I'm writing 3 in a novella, and I'm already going, alrighty, who's already crossed over?" Because
Yeah, right.
I've got a pirate princess that's trying to come into my main book series, and I'm like, no, I'm like, you need to
Yeah,
stay over there because I don't need you coming in and starting chaos here. And
totally.
so when you did the first 3 books, did you self-publish them yourselves or did you go hybrid?
So we self-published Bonded by Thorns and Woven by Gold. And then it was after they had been published, we signed with Harper Voyager and their new imprint, Magpie. And they have rights to the United Kingdom, Commonwealth, except for Canada, and most of Europe. And so Forged by Malice came out as a hybrid release. And
Okay.
yeah, Broken by Daylight will come out as a hybrid release
Yeah,
as
and they're
well.
going to be re-releasing in those territories like hardcovers of the books with like brand new covers coming in
I
like
saw
2024, which is
Yeah.
very exciting.
Mhm.
I saw you guys post that. I was like, "Oh, yeah." I was like, "Wait, I live in the United States." That's oh.
Waterstones does ship
We
though.
have heard, yeah,
Yeah.
Waterstones.
If that all got put out there and everybody's like, "Oh, do we get sprayed edges too?" Like I could just see everybody going like, "Let's just make this happen." Um
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I have to say, whoever does your cover art is phenomenal because I absolutely love it. So,
I-
like, kudos to them.
They are
Yeah,
so
they're
amazing. We have so
amazing.
many compliments about our art.
Like,
And what's funny is it was and I think this should be something for indie authors, is that wasn't even a fully commissioned cover, the first book. It was a pre-made she had. And I think a lot of people have like maybe not stigmatism, but like, oh, you can't have a really professional cover that's a pre-made. And it was a pre-made that I just saw on her list and I was like, this is gorgeous. This is my book. And I messaged them and it was available. And we just had a couple tweaks with it. And then the series, and then for the future books, we had like way more input. But I think it's like if you're starting out, just know your genre, but there are affordable ways to indie publish too, just for like indie authors who are like, oh, I can't afford a $2,000 cover. I don't think you need a $2,000 cover to have like a good book in your genre that's gonna like look like it fits there. Anyways, that's my little tangent
No,
into
I'm actually so
yeah,
glad you said that because I'm so glad you said that because that's kind of
yeah,
what I was going with the whole this whole doing this podcast was because
yeah,
I'm getting multiple different people on and I would love to hear everybody's start stories and
yeah.
also, you know, your advice for indie authors coming in doing this themselves. I did it by myself without reaching out to authors. I got two they were hybrids, but the amount of money that I needed to put out, I couldn't
Mhm.
afford. And I was just like, I can't do this. And also, I did not give myself a long deadline.
Yeah.
I wrote
Yeah.
my first book in 22 days and had it published within 90, just because I was like, you know what? Yeah, send it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you learn the most by just doing it
It's true,
too. You
yeah.
do. Absolutely.
So what is aside from the book cover, what is one other big thing that you two have learned, like with this journey of self-publishing yourselves, like that you want to give out to others as like a piece of advice, like, hey, this is something we stumbled upon, this will help you.
I think for myself, and this is something I learned maybe like when I was in my 20s or something, is like other authors are not your competition in a way. And I used to like, not that I thought they were my competition, but I used to get like really sad or really down on myself when I saw someone like succeed or get a book deal, and I felt like, oh, it made me feel worthless. And I was like, oh, I wish I could have that. And I think it's more now my mindset has like shifted because obviously there's so many readers out there, they're never going to be able to just sustain themselves on your book. So when another author succeeds in your genre, it's just bringing more light to that genre,
Mhm.
and more readers in who could potentially find your book. And actually just like reaching out and making connections with other authors is so great, and like watching like your friends succeed. And yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it took a long time because like I think it's something that you need to work on. And like, yeah,
Uh,
anyways, I'm
yeah.
rambling.
No, 100%. Like I absolutely agree with that too, is like, yeah, I everything you said. And I think my takeaway, something that I've learned, especially for indie authors, is that you do have to separate it's not just about the writing.
Mhm.
Indie publishing is a full business, and you have to be both a writer and a business person, which I think can be very hard for us creatives a lot of the time to realize that. But it's not just about your book, baby.
Mhm.
You have to be able to do market research. You have to be
Yeah.
able to like identify what readers want, and then figure out creatively how you can deliver that. And also, this is like the hardest part for me, but something I am still learning,
Mhm.
is you have to be your own advocate, and
Mhm.
you're the only one who's going to look out for your book baby 100%, and you have to be strong and protective for your book baby, and you speak up when something doesn't feel right. And yeah, you have to wear both hats, and still keep that creative part of yourself while still being able to let go a little bit and look at things objectively.
Yeah, that is honestly perfectly said, because I've seen that in the community. I mean, even within myself. I mean, I follow a couple people that were like, "Oh, I just got signed," and I'm just like, "Oh, yay! I'm happy for you, but man, what am I doing wrong?" And
I
it's
know.
hard to get that thought process out of your head. It's like, okay, they can succeed. Why? What am I doing wrong that I can't get to
Hmm.
that level? And you're right. It takes a lot of like working on yourself to realize I can do that. The
Mhm.
blockade that's there is me. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's just, something that as I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but it's a little hard to get over when you're just like, man, I'm my own worst enemy
It
sometimes.
is very hard, and it can feel very lonely, and it's like we're very lucky we have each other. But
Mhm.
one, yeah, like, bonus piece of thing is that one of the best things that ever happened is when I put myself out and reach out to somebody, and like I use this expression, which is just ask. You never know what happens when you
Mhm.
just ask. And I find that everybody I've met in this, especially in the indie author community, loves to share. Like they
Mhm.
love to they're like, isn't gatekeeping. It's like nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I maybe
Yeah.
know a little bit, and maybe I know a little bit, and maybe we can learn this bit if we put our heads together.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's sort of, again, and I've been doing this for, over a year now, still feel like there's so much to learn in this business.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I have to say everyone that I've reached out to, even just with doing this, like, cause like I had said before, when I reached out to you guys, in the back of my head there was so much like they're not going to respond, they're too busy to look at your messages, stop. But I was like, you know what? I was like, if I don't ask, I'll never know. And what, like I said, you guys responded. I was like, like a total like fangirl geek out moment, and and but you're right, you don't know until you're asked. Like I got put in an authors chat group of indie authors from book threads, and I've gone in there a couple times and I was like, hey, I have a question, like, has anyone ever heard of this company that reached out to me through email? I feel a little nervous like responding because you don't want to get scammed. You don't want somebody
Totally.
scamming you, and especially out of like a lot of money. Like I've
Yeah.
seen
Totally.
it. So it's like having those other authors are like, hey, no, this I ignored that red flag and went with them, and don't do it. Like save
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
That was probably the best thing I ever did, because originally I would have just responded like da 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 da, and I'm
Totally.
I'm I'm glad
Yeah.
I reached out. So
Absolutely.
you're right with that one. Um, I know where our time is coming to an end here soon, and I'm like, oh, there's still so much to talk about. Um, but what is one character that you absolutely like find to be the one you identify with the most out of all of them, not even just like the main ones, just out of everyone.
I think like obviously we have a bit of ourselves in all of the characters, but I think is Rosie obviously. And with Rosie with a heroine, we wanted to intentionally write her to be relatable to the audience. And well, she's relatable to me. And what would I do? I mean, I'm not a warrior and I'm thrust into this castle. I'm a bookworm. So I think Rosie again, and seeing Rosie be strong sometimes in situations makes me think, okay, well, if Rosie can do this, like I can put myself out of my comfort zone and not be shy. So I think, yeah, Rosie.
Yeah, I think we wrote Rosie in a lot of ways as a like healing journey for ourselves to be like, when a lot of times you read fantasy or fantasy romance and you think, I don't think I would be ready to pick up a sword and get in some spandex and go, and fight a war right now. I'm not
Yeah.
feeling that prepared. And so, Rosie has like she's a slow and steady character. She is constantly learning. She makes a lot of mistakes. She has a lot of thoughts that can often be to her detriment. And that's just something that I feel like, I personally relate to a lot, and we felt like our audience could relate to a lot. But at the same time, I find her to be very lovable. And, we wanted to show that kind of strength. And I think that was why I find her relatable as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I
Well,
think I also will go with Rosie. Yeah.
I have to say, where yes, I relate to Rosie. A good part of me relates to Marigold.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
Yeah.
yeah.
absolutely adore her. I'm like, if I got a whole book of just Marigold, just lusting after everyone, I would
Yeah.
be content in my heart.
Yeah.
Fair enough too. Yeah,
Right.
Marigold is just like she's just like butter to write.
Yeah.
She's
I
all of our
sh-
darkest thoughts.
Yeah.
she's the one she's that friend in the corner that when they get drunk, you're just like,
Yeah,
no, duct tape, do not speak. Like, but
totally.
it's perfect. And
Yeah.
the way you guys rate her, I literally just look at her as a giant sass ball, especially,
Yeah.
when she's walking around with the apron on in this in
Oh
raccoon
yeah.
form. I'm like, yep, I can see that, and yep, yep, I would love to
Totally.
just have a raccoon sass me. It'd be great.
Yeah, she's who I want to be when I'm growing up, and
100%. I'm
Yeah.
like, if I get older and just have no filter, I am just gonna be like her, and that's just who I'm gonna morph my adult years into. And
Yeah.
I like I said, I absolutely adore her. That's where my pick would go. Um,
Love it.
but yeah, so is there anything you guys want to put out there to everybody about, upcoming release dates and things to look out for?
Um, I guess Broken by Daylight is out September 10th, and the hardcovers for the Harper Voyager Magpie editions are out July 18th. And yeah, just like how grateful we are to all of our readers taking a chance on a romantasy why choose, and like it's literally changed our life, and just it's so exciting, and we love our readings
Yeah.
more than anything.
And thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
It's been so fun to
Mhm.
chat Briar stuff and book stuff and indie stuff. And yeah, we love it.
I appreciate you both coming on and like speaking with me at all. Like I said, I'm still slightly fangirling. If anyone that's watching this can't tell, I'm fangirling. It is what it is. But so that's all the time we have for today. I want to say thank you so much to both you, Elizabeth and Helen. And if you can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at it's author Elizabeth Helen with periods between or no periods.
With periods
Periods, yeah.
between, yeah.
Periods. There you go. Well, everyone, you have a great day. Thank you guys again for coming. We'll see you guys next time.